Communications Center, 238.5. 1, heads up traffic, 350, 6 miles, 22,000 feet eastbound. Miami Center, R1, Wiki level 250. Miami Center, radar contact, maintain flight level 250.
As a young guy out of flight school, flying the most powerful fighter ever built, it's hard not to think of yourself as pretty cool, and I did. I was excited for sure, but I'll tell you, I was a little nervous about what I was getting into.
Otter 1 is clear to land, runway 21 right. Looking forward to being here.
Otter 1, Nellis Tower, copy here now.
Here at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, 128 aircraft from 6 countries have assembled for the largest air combat exercises in the world. For the next 14 days, these aircraft and their crews will undertake a simulated air war. For many, it will be the final tune-up before they go into actual combat. They call it Red Flag.
Take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. To our American pilots and crews, and especially to our allied partners, I'd like to be the first to welcome you to Red Flag. Nations from around the world are gathered here today, including countries from Germany with their Tornadoes, Italy with their F15.
Here I was, surrounded by the best fighter pilots in the world. But I think that all of us young pilots felt like we had something to prove, that we deserved to be there, and I wasn't any different.
Aircraft. In fact, together, you currently represent the second largest combat air force anywhere in the world.
On the first morning of Red Flag, the Nellis flight line prepares to launch an enormous international armada of aircraft, all in about 20 minutes. There are 22 F-15 Eagles, representing 4 American squadrons. They are considered by many to be the greatest fighter aircraft ever built. The Germans have brought 8 of their European-built Tornadoes. The Canadians, the multi-role F-18 Hornet arriving from Alberta in Quebec. The British Royal Navy has flown in their famous Harrier jump jets.
Okay, last me at the carpet, David.
Represented here are not just the best pilots and aircraft, but the finest ground crews from each country.
How do you hear me?
For most personnel, this will be their first opportunity to compare themselves with other squadrons from across the United States. States and around the world.
Eagle 2-1, we're on the hold. Eagle copy. One hit through. Contact ground. Roger, 1-1. Tower, ISP 1, runway 3 left. Chaco 2-1, flex turn out to through. Good luck on mission 1, Chaco 2-1. Tower, IS 1-1, rounding the tights. Snag 1, clear takeoff. Let's make it happen, boys. Vance on Ellis Tower, you're cleared for takeoff. Chaco 2-1, Ellis Tower, unrestricted climb approved. Contact Vance time, 5-8. Tower, Chaco 2-1, copy.
It has long been known that if fighter pilots could survive their first 10 combat missions, their chances of surviving throughout their careers improves dramatically.
Vessel sit check, Falcon.
Red Flag was created to provide those first 10 missions, and they make it as real as humanly possible. What is about to happen is considered by pilots to be more challenging and dangerous than war itself.
Sold 1, that's right.
Get it off and the thrust that it gets. This is fully loaded with 2 tanks here of fuel. This is typical for either going into battle or going on a cross country where you need the fuel and you don't need the armament. But all the aircraft, all the F-15s have the ability to put on up to 3 tanks, 1 center line. They also have stanchions where they can put an array of different types of munitions like heat-seeking missiles, and as well as the new AMRAAM that surpassed the AIM-7 as a radar missile. It's designed to be fired and go out and at almost hyperspeed and hit the enemy before it's even within visual range. Another picture of it, you can see that there's a lot of room here in the back. It was designed that way because they actually have a version of this where they have someone in a backseater just like we had in the F4. So he can do air to ground much better. He does the mapping, he does the weapons control while the guy in front keeps from hitting things and seeing the pilots that he needs to shoot down. It's quite an effective team when they do it with a backseater. This, in fact, is just for the air-to-air, and again, it's an excellent visual lookout. If you can remember from the pictures of the movie we just saw, you could see everything down around you. Older aircraft had problems with seeing in the back, which is a problem if somebody's sneaking up on you and you want to make sure that you don't get shot from behind, in addition to the visual on just being able to pick up other targets. Next. Let's get in the bath. This is the arrival of this aircraft here at the museum. Usually this is done for aircraft that are either new or aircraft that are going out, or pilots that are ending their career, and they get the police or the fire department to come out and give them a hosing down. Next. It's not too much more to see. You might notice that these these black holes, those are where the air comes in, and there's a duct on that that moves and is designed to move so that it can always move in a position so that as the airplane goes through the air, whether it's in a position slow flight like this, the duct is down into the wind so that it gets air in without any, I can say about this is it's beautiful. You can see that duct is, ramp is up straight because he's flying straight into the what we call the flight line. A few things here. We have antennas of different types. Some are collecting information, some are radio antennas. We also have on the back here, this is a pod that not only detects other radar, but it also now has been modified so it can do radar jamming as well. Next. Another picture. Next. Okay. When you got it. I've got a few things to show you, and we'll take a few questions about the F-15. First of all, the well-dressed fighter pilot is dressed like this, and the utility of this is very important. You have things where you can keep them from rolling out and falling on the floor, jamming controls. You also have places to store things that are handy, like neosynephrine, which you use if you go to high altitude and get a sinus block, and it's very painful, debilitating. This is a little old, but it worked for me all the years I've had it. The other things that I'll show you, if you can hear me back there, or we can, without the mic, I think I can handle this with the mic. This is my helmet, and I'll demonstrate just how it works in a moment. Basically, we have a combination air mask and a microphone inside. You put this on over your head. Mess up your hairdo. Snap it on. If it's nighttime, you have a clear one. You always fly with the visor because it protects you from anything blowing around in the cockpit. If you had any part of your airplane was damaged, or in any case, you would have your eyesight protected. And the mask plugs in and it gives you pure air, filtered air. And then at certain heights, we start putting in oxygen under pressure. So when you get up to about 50,000 feet, you're breathing pure oxygen under high pressure. Allows you to keep alive because the rest of the air there is pretty...
Dave, could you get up close and personal with that microphone? There you go. You had a little trouble in the back, those seniors.
I'm sorry about that. In any case, the mask is designed to give you the oxygen you need when you need it at the altitude you need it. And that's its main purpose. Another piece of equipment that is rarely seen, if you just hold this up for me. You hold it back, Mike. This is called a G-suit. They call it an anti-G suit. And it buckles up around you. And then these go on like chaps. Put your legs in there, zip them up. And when you are up at altitude and you start pulling G's, there's air pressure is pressurized through here to inflate bladders that are starting down here all the way up inside this fabric to squeeze your leg from the calf to the hip to the abdomen to push your blood up into your chest area and diaphragm area so that you have the oxygen you need when you're pulling 6 or 7 Gs and the blood all wants to go to your feet. You couldn't do what we do without these. And so that's a very important thing. These are gloves. They're not just any kind of gloves. These are made out of a particular type of goat skin. They're very thin, allows you to feel knobs and switches, and it also protects you in case of a fire. This suit and the back of these gloves is made of Nomex. It doesn't burn. If you're in an accident and you have to get out, this type of glove with this leather has the property of not curling up. Most leather, if it's comes in contact with a flame or heat, it'll curl up, and that would you wouldn't be able to use your hands to get out of the aircraft. Just a few of the little things that we take with us. There's probably 1,000 things I could tell you, but I'd like to hear some questions from you folks. Yes?
What is the G limit for the F-15's airframe?
The man inside it. Typically, we try to stay within a range of about 6 to 7 Gs, just because it saves the flexing down the wings so it lasts longer. But I've seen 8.4 at one time, and you don't do that often. But that's the G limit in a clean situation. Nothing on the wings. Next to you. In the back.
What was the maximum range of the AIM-7s you carried?
Probably in the neighborhood of about 15 miles start for the shot. And the problem with the AIM-7 was it was a great missile, but it was a rocket and coast missile. So as it starts into the coast phase, it starts to slow down. And if you're closing with the target and it's slowing down, you both end up in the same place about 5 miles from each other. And the whole idea of the weapon is to be outside visual range, so you never have to engage with the enemy. In this case, you'll be in the fur ball when the first guy gets shot. And so that's what we ended up going to the AMRAAM, which is a much better missile. It has a lot of features that the other one didn't have. The other thing is that with the AMRAAM, the radar that's inside the aircraft now can be used to not only look for other targets and paint them, you can go and find a target and you can designate it, and it will sweep and track at the same time. So you can keep track of those guys you've designated and still look for other ones. The AMRAAM was a problem. You had to stay locked on until the final portion, not the AMRAAM, the AIM-7, until the final portion of it, and it can lock on itself. This one takes off and it knows where it's going. Next. Yes, sir.
What kind of stuff do you need to learn to fly a plane?
Well, you have to want to first. A lot of people don't want to get near an aircraft, but I think you need some education. The Air Force accepts only people with college degrees. That might be a mistake, but that's the way they clean out people that aren't going to make it early. And that's not anything about not going to college. It's just they want to see whether or not you can get through a course of education, because it takes stamina and the will to go through it. I went through as a science and math major. The guy sitting next to me was a music major. He still made it in the Air Force. So I think the will and the education are the two things that you need. There are also some different physical capabilities. Eyesight is one of them. Color vision to some degree, and basically some people are just too big or too small to get into the airplane. Next. I have no combat missions. I was in pipeline status to go to Vietnam, and they took me to Germany instead. in the F4E, which was, like he said, a pretty heady experience to being a young pilot flying the hottest airplane in the inventory. This was before the F15, and you do feel like a hot shot. Next.
How many flight hours do you have in F4E?
F4E, I have 1,500. Way back.
What base were you at in Germany?
Bitburg,
Okay,
down there in the Eifel area.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I know, I've been there.
But we went everywhere. When we were stationed in Germany, the weather was so bad down there that we'd have to go down to Spain to do our gunnery practice and dropping bombs and stuff. The Germans didn't like us to do it up there anyway, but it gave us an opportunity to fly down and get in some sort of an agreement and with the Spanish people down there. And we actually went all over on different either cross-country rides, because building time was the most important thing for a pilot at that time. And so we take a weekend trip and go to 2 or 3 different bases. Way in the back.
How was the F-15 mission impacted by the new F-22s and F-35s, if at all?
The F-15 reached its 50-year mark. Extra electronics to bring the electronic ability to detect and the ability to shoot possibly hypersonic missiles, and a lot more capability to the airplane. The engines are different. It can now go close to, in the F-15, close to 3 times the speed of sound. And it's got weaponry and the type of radar that can allow you to now shoot and never come near the target that you just destroyed. I see the stars on your cuff. What do they represent? Each one represents 500 non-combat but combat ready hours. 25,000 hours. Yes. Yeah. And I was on combat ready status the entire time I was in the Air Force until I went to the aggressors. The aggressors are a different story. There is an F-5E out in the hangar. If you come out, we'll be able to see that. And the F-5E was chosen to act as a MiG-21 look-alike, work-alike, fly-alike, because we needed people to be flying against the enemy using the aggressors were flying the F-5s, and we would be flying the tactics that the Soviets used, and that allowed them to practice their tactics against a real target rather than who's the better guy in an airplane, F-15, on that particular day when you're fighting against the same thing.
What was your call sign?
Bushman.
Where were you stationed with the F-5s?
With the F-5s, Nellis.
I was in Williams Air Force Base.
Okay. They used the 38 in Williams, did they not?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
We were the trainers, we were just there to practice everything.
The T-38 looks a lot like the F-5E, but it's an entirely different airplane. It wasn't built for fight, it was built to train people. And it's a supersonic trainer, 1.7. Yes, sir.
Were you ever in a combat situation with an enemy aircraft?
I flew 2 combat trials, combat-like trials against the MiG-21. We brought MiG-21s, real ones, into Tonopah test, and they were all classified. But we took those aircraft and we got our pilots one by one to be able to fly against a MiG-21 and determine, use their knowledge and see, he is small, he is agile, he does do well in low altitude, not as well in high altitude, and learn for yourself. Because most of the people that were in Vietnam, first time they saw a MiG-21, it was, wow, look at that. because they'd never seen one before, and it astonished them. They also, the next time they saw it, they probably were seeing somebody else get shot by it. That was the problem we had in Vietnam. We did not have the ability to turn and fight with the MiG-21. Anybody else? There must be somebody. Yes, sir.
Did you know Richie, the first ace in Vietnam?
Did I know him?
Or know of him?
I did not know him. I knew the guy that worked on his airplane.
So
He, when he came over to Germany, he needed a place to stay and they needed to be sponsored, so we brought him over and put him in our back bedroom. Yes?
How did you get your
Call signs are usually either given to you or occasionally you choose them yourself. There are various ways to get a call sign. The guy that's named Flaps is probably the guy named Flaps because he didn't put his flaps down for landing. The guy that's named Wheels probably didn't have his landing gear down when the guy in the tower sent him around. Most of those nicknames or call signs are derived from something that happens, or in some cases, I have bushy eyebrows, so I'm named Bushman. And the reason we have them is because when you're up there and there's 4 or 5, 6 people on the radio, you need somebody that you can identify, not only by voice, but by a call sign. Because every time you go up, you have a different physical call sign that's, marked on you're going to be mic 2, mic 3, mic 4. But when you're in the combat area, you're using your call sign, and you can even tell if you fly enough together just by the voice who it is. Anyone? Yes, sir.
When you flew the aggressor, did you get paid in rubles or dollars?
I have some rubles left over, but they're not worth much. But every aggressor has a ruble in his pocket. If you go to the bar and you don't have one, you buy the bar. So the aggressors, I haven't talked much about them, but they're specialized in their training. They learn all about the Soviet tactics that we teach as well. And how tall is Ivan? We know how he grew up, how they put him, filtered him out, what universities they went to, and what their capability was. We also, and a lot of this information came from very classified sources, and we didn't ever give an acknowledgement as to where it came from. We found that if you were an intel operator and you came out and stood on in a classroom and the guys were there to get their intel brief, and they say, well, we know now that such and such missile is doing this, or that they're carrying this over this this group of aircraft are going to be working out of this base for a while. The first thing that they would ask is, how do you know? And we were the people that never got asked that question because we had ties and sources that gave us the information, and then we didn't have to display any of the rest of it. Some of this came from very, very interesting sources. Might have a antenna that's aligned with another antenna that's on the East German side and picking up information all the time. Sometimes it comes off a pillow talk from somebody. So it was really something that we were able to disseminate to the pilots, and as well as when we went on the road show, we'd also take them through different courses depending on what sort of information they wanted. We visited every single fighter squadron at least once a year, and usually twice, so that we could give them the training they needed to begin with. We would take them out and fly them 2v2, 1v1, so that they got used to learning how to fly against an F5, which is equivalent of a MiG-21. And then when they're ready, when they're flying 6'4" or so, we bring them to red flag, which is what we were just seeing here, and then they fly they bring their squadrons down for 3 weeks, and they would fly 10 missions out in a huge conflict out over the Nellis Range. We would have up to 250 aircraft in the air flying combination from red side to blue side. That's where they got the information and the training that they needed to go to Desert Storm. Anyone else?
In the back.
Yes. Back.
Did you participate, or do you know anyone who did participate in one of the missions that included F-4 Phantoms acting like bombers during Vietnam to catch the Soviets off guard?
Say that just again.
Do you know, or did you participate in one of the missions where they had the F-4 Phantoms act like the bombers and join in a bomber formation in order to catch the Soviets off guard during Vietnam?
No, I didn't. I did not get to Vietnam. I was in pipeline to Vietnam, and they picked me and 3 other pilots to go to Germany instead.
If you have or ever read it out or blacked out, how many times have you?
That's a question that starts with an answer like, I don't remember being unconscious. The fact of the matter is, you train yourself to see what the symptoms are. And in the cockpit, under G, you don't breathe normally. You're already tensed up, and all the bladders are full, all the blood's up here, and you pant. It's like short breaths, and that forces that oxygen that's under pressure into your lungs a little better, and it helps, instead of having that exhale where your lungs are empty, you're always pumping fresh oxygen into your brain. The symptoms of blacking out vary, but usually you see a kind of a tunnel vision. You probably heard that before, or you see some little kind of sparkling, and that's your clue. And usually that's enough. We did have F-16s that went out, and when I was flying the F-5, everything we did, we simulate shooting somebody by putting the BB on the canopy, and Fox 1, Fox 2, Fox 3, guns, whatever it was, and we would actually the guns would come open, and the camera would take pictures of what we were seeing through the rifle. And the reason that was important is because we all bet on whether the kill was good or not. If you called a kill and it didn't work, you bought the bar. So when the film was done. But the F-16 was the beginning aircraft that had a camera that records like our recorders do now. So they turned them on when they got to the area that they were going to fly in, and then they turned them off at the end. And they noticed that they would see, in the picture, they'd see the airplane carving past all this back brush and mountains and stuff, and then it'd be doing this sort of thing, and then it'd do it again. And they found that they were taking little naps there, and they were actually just microscopically blacked out, and they didn't know it. So they had to start changing their philosophy on how they handled that. And what they did was they started putting a lot of equipment into the individual squadrons. Before, they thought that the best thing for a pilot was to be thin and agile and able to, good physical state. Now we find out that the more muscle you have, the easier it is to stay awake in under G. So now you see they have a gym in almost every squadron, and they use it all the time. It also helps protect your neck, because under G, this is 6 Gs, down to 6 Gs to 6 Gs, and it finally gets to your back. So that's how they handle their blackout problem. Also, the F-16 has a canted seat, so it's back a little bit. That's supposed to distribute the weight a little differently. I'm not so sure it's a big difference, but it does help them turn a lot. Yes, sir.
Just to pause slightly, for a couple administrative announcements. If you go out to the hangar, we do have a stair that you can go up and look in the cockpit, okay? Really good to do that. Make sure you use the handrails, be safe. And, oh, don't forget, our galley crew, let's give it up for them. And we hope to see you back here on the 19th of April for a really great presentation, a blast from the past. Not quite as fast as this airplane. It'll be fun. John Colway, did you have a question? You're on.
Yes, I do. There's a story about an F-15 in the Israeli Air Force that lost a wing, and the pilot was still able to land it. Do you know about that story?
There's been several stories like that. This airplane is designed to compensate with its internal mechanisms, changes in aerodynamics. The fly-by-wire version, which this is not completely, the new ones will be probably, they have a computer in there that knows what all the, the stabilizers and the tail fins and all the rest of that, just exactly what they can do. We've had a collision between I think he was from Sweden, came over to us to fly in Red Flag. He and his buddy were passed by an F5, and they both pitched back to go engage it, and they ran into each other. One had to bail out immediately. The other guy lost half of his wing and all of his stabilizer on one side, and because the fly-by-wire was able to change the dynamics of the range of those other areas of the wing and the tail, he was able to bring it back and land it. And it was good for parts after that. Yes?
Have you ever had a major in-flight emergency, and if so, how'd you get through it?
I died. Yes, major, it's hard to say. In terms of the aircraft, I had complete hydraulic failure on one side of the aircraft, and the engine flamed out. The normal way to start an engine like that is to Tiger start it. You push it forward, the throttle automatically starts the sparks. But it was such an unusual way for it to just fail, I decided I'd just fly it in on one engine. The hydraulics on the other side, they have blocks that test to see how the pressure is going, and if it's going lower there, they block that one and open up this one. So it was a little squirrely flying, but it wasn't anything really exciting. Came in, landed, and spread hydraulic fluid all over the runway. And about 3 weeks later, I decided I'd go find out what happened to that engine, and I went down to the engine folks, and they said, "Oh yeah, we remember that." And they said, "What happened?" The entire fuel pump for the upper area of the afterburner cracked. And I said, "Oh really?" He says, "What's that doing?" He says, "Well, if you'd have started it, it would have blown the airplane off and you wouldn't be here." So one of the rules that we have is don't try to troubleshoot an airplane in the air. If you got the gear down after it wouldn't go down, keep it down. If you got things where you want them or you can control it, don't try to do any troubleshooting. Other areas, I had an area where I was chasing an F15 out at Red Flag, and he was going up and I was going up after him, and I said, "Okay, I'll just follow him on up, he's got to come down sometime." Well, he didn't come down as fast as I did. He had more thrust and he disappeared. And I looked down and I had about 20 knots, that's 20 nautical miles of speed on my airplane, and so I just kicked it over on the side so it would fall off one way or another. If it falls through in the F5, it typically falls through, you get about 6 Gs on the other side and you get an inverted spin, which is difficult but not impossible to get out of. In my case, it ended up being an oscillating spin, and we just used center the stick, determine the direction of the spin, put the opposite direction with the pedal in, full forward, boom, hold it, and come out. And then I went after the F-15 again.
Okay. How did they get the F-15s over to Europe? Did they fly them or did
Yes.
they?
Yeah, they tankered them over. Or probably with them, they had the capability to put 3 bags on and get there. And because now they have conformal gas tanks. The conformal gas tank is a tank that's built into the skin, the outside skin of the airplane. And it can pump gas in. Normally when you get attacked, you have to jettison all those other tanks because you can't turn well with that weight and that drag. So with the conformal tanks, they're able to have the gas where they can use it without paying for much of it in terms of drag, which is a terrible thing. When you're pulling high Gs, the drag builds up tremendously and you slow down in a hurry. And those conformal tanks are sealed so that they can reseal themselves with certain types of ammunition goes through. And all of the pipes run through tanks so that if the pipe gets a leak, it's inside a tank so it doesn't bother anyone. Yes?
Did the F4 have an option of running one pilot, or did it always require 2?
You could fly perfectly well with just one pilot. The reason we had 2 pilots was that running the radar in the back was considered to be a 2-man job, and with the equipment they had, it was. And having somebody in the front that's looking out front, and then when you get to the merge, he's the guy that has to do the combat flying there. It was a good combination, particularly when they were doing air to ground, because he was able to call the low levels. We do a low level in the dark. It's all on time. He'll say, okay, there's a mountain over here, and you turn now, and you turn, climb 100 feet, and you climb. So it was really a 2-man airplane. But to ferry it, yeah, I've ferried a lot of them with just me in the seat. Running out of arms. Well, thank you, folks. I've enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to be out here, and if you'd like to come out and I'll walk around the airplane with you, if we get a chance to put you up on that ramp and let you see what it looks like on the inside, we'll do that. And we don't just look at the F-15, I flew the F-4 and the F-5 too, so we'll wander around them all. Thank you.